Hi, Kent Lindell, Colorado Land Company. Thank you for joining us today. We're talking about sellers when your property is under contract and some of the things to expect in the process once it does go under contract. One of the first things that you're going to be notified about is when the buyer turns in their earnest money. Now, Colorado Land Company does not accept and hold the earnest money check. That's going to be the title company that will do that. Once we do receive the earnest money check, Susie, our transaction coordinator, would take that check over to the title company along with a copy of the contract, and so they'll hold that for us while we're going through the real estate transaction process. Okay, what's next? Well, then we have a home inspection. The buyers are going to schedule a home inspection. Now, sometimes sellers can get a little anxious about that home inspection, and they may worry about, oh boy, what is this going to do, and what are they going to turn up? Well, that's one of the things that what we try to do with Colorado Land Company. Susie and I want to counsel and guide you and try to advise you on items that we see before we ever put the house on the market. We may find some things as we're walking through the house that you may want to fix or repair that we suspect may turn up in a home inspection. So if we've got all those things done in advance, hey, we're good to go. And so when the buyer does submit a inspection objection, there are going to be very few items on there because you, the seller, have taken care of those items in advance. So that is awesome and that is great. Sometimes sellers have concerns about, well, hey, the buyer and their financing, how is this going to work out? How is this going to turn out? Well, one thing is that when we do receive a contract from a buyer, we always ask the buyer's lender to get, the buyer's agent, if we can get a lender letter. And the lender letter will tell us if this buyer is pre-approved for the amount of what the house is selling for, what the asking price is. So we want to make sure that we have those bases covered so that we don't have something fall apart midway through the transaction process. So buyer financing, we want to make sure that that's taken care of. A lot of sellers will ask us, oh, Kent, what about if the appraisal? I'm nervous about the appraisal. Well, that's one of the hurdles, and so sometimes it's dependent upon the appraiser. Sometimes appraisers don't turn in values that we would like, but what we're trying to do on the front end, Colorado Land Company, is to make sure that we're doing a CMA and analysis to make sure that we get your home positioned right price-wise so that we can avoid those headaches or that appraisal under appraising situation down the road. So there's kind of the logic. We're thinking down the road quite a ways ahead when we do the CMA to make sure that we've got you positioned right. So as we're going through the real estate transaction process, we're getting closer to closing. So the buyers, a day or two before closing, will want to do a walkthrough. So what does that mean? So with the home inspection and the inspection objection, the buyers are saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we want you to fix this, 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 and this. And so let's say that you agreed to those items. Well, so you as a seller are going to hire a contractor to get these things fixed and repaired before closing. So the buyers are going to do their walkthrough to make sure that, let's say, for example, that it's that leaky faucet, it's fixed. Let's say that the cabinet to the furnace is dirty and needed to be serviced. So they're going to check and make sure that that's good. So the walkthrough, we want to make sure that all those items are taken care of before closing, because if we don't, that can run to a big problem for all of us prior to closing. That is something we do not want to have happen. Then, of course, we get close to closing, the day of closing. What happens? Well, we will receive what's called a settlement statement. And so what Susie and I like to have you do as sellers, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, come in about a half hour before closing. And here's why. Because in private, we can talk about the details of the settlement statement and make sure that all those numbers are correct. Why in private? Because so often people, when they're in a group and in kind of a pressure situation, sometimes people are a little reluctant to ask questions. We want you to ask questions when we're looking over the settlement statement, making sure those numbers are correct. If you have questions about those numbers, we can adequately and properly explain what those numbers mean. Okay, So then we go to closing, and if we've done all of our homework right, and we've done everything that was required and expected of us, so closing will go smooth. And I would say 99% of the time it does, and we're glad about that. So hopefully here this video has kind of helped you, kind of giving you what is expected through the transaction process from the time that a contract is written and accepted until the day of closing.